There are times in life when movement seems like an illusion, like the wheels are spinning, but the vehicle of your soul is caught in some invisible mud. You press forward, but it feels as though you're tethered to something heavy, ancient, unseen. This sensation, the slow erosion of purpose, the fog of repeated patterns, the quiet ache that grows when the outer world no longer mirrors your inner flame, is not simply a mood, it is a signal. And in the deeper architecture of the cosmos, it is echoed in the language of the stars. To feel stuck is not just a psychological or emotional phenomenon. It is often a spiritual rite of passage disguised as delay. And perhaps you've been standing at the threshold of change, wondering why nothing moves, why doors remain closed, why clarity refuses to come. But now, something ancient shifts. The wheel groans forward. The drumbeat of cosmic timing begins to echo through the caves of your being. Saturn, the architect of karma and sacred boundaries, steps boldly into Aries, the sign of fire, initiation, and raw selfhood. The long night begins to dissolve. This is no ordinary transit. Saturn is not a casual planet. It is not loud like Mars, nor radiant like the sun. It doesn't shout. It carves. It chisels. It makes sacred geometry out of time and tests the integrity of all things. Where Saturn moves, reality becomes heavy, but only so it can become holy. And now, that sacred sculptor walks into Aries, the infant flame of the zodiac. It enters not a palace, but a battlefield, where identity is forged, where the self rises unarmored for the first time. And this fusion, this paradox of ancient weight and newborn fire, is precisely what makes this transit the long-awaited shift for those who have felt stuck in the no-man's land of becoming. To understand why this matters, we must first feel the soul of each archetype involved. Aries, firstborn of the zodiacal wheel, is pure movement. It does not ask permission. It is the strike of the match, the edge of instinct, the I am, before the world names you. It is the original motion that dares to disrupt inertia. And Saturn? Saturn is the law of structure, of consequences, of earned wisdom. It demands integrity and often withholds its blessings until the soul is ready to carry them responsibly. Put simply, Aries wants to go, and Saturn wants you to grow before you go. So what happens when the soul sculptor enters the sign of unfiltered motion? A unique alchemy unfolds. The impulse to act is no longer chaotic. It is tested. The desire to move forward becomes intentional. The flame is not extinguished by weight. It is made durable, like a fire held in a lantern, rather than exposed to the wind. Saturn in Aries doesn't kill momentum. It gives it meaning. It converts willpower into weaponry for the soul. And for those who've been caught in the purgatory of unrealized change, this transit says, now is the time. But this time, you do it right. The reason you felt stuck isn't because you lack courage or clarity. It's because a deeper part of you refused to continue building a life that betrayed your authenticity. The wheel of karma has been asking you to pause, to feel, to untangle the roots of your past patterns before you're permitted to move forward. Saturn delays not to punish, but to prepare. And Aries, who usually acts without thinking, is now being mentored in mastery. The adolescent rebel must now become a warrior priest. The flame must learn discipline, not to be dimmed, but to endure the long night and guide others home. This moment in the skies marks the end of wandering without direction and the beginning of walking a path shaped by your truest self. No more building ladders up the wrong walls. No more chasing identities that look good from the outside but feel hollow inside. If you've been craving momentum, if you've been praying for a push, Saturn in Aries is not the gust of wind you hoped for. It's the compass you didn't know you needed. It shows you where to strike the flint, where to build the altar, where to say yes with your whole body, and where to say no with the power of your becoming. We are not just talking about astrology here. We are talking about sacred timing, about the invitation to align your external movement with internal integrity. The world is not asking you to simply move. It is asking you to become the kind of person for whom forward is not an escape, but a sacred vow. In this sacred season, the universe has tied your feet not to punish you, but to teach you to walk only where your soul can sing. And now, the ropes fall. The fire rises. The architect and the warrior meet inside your chest. What happens next is yours to decide. Beneath every astrological alignment lies a coded invitation, part challenge, part liberation. In the case of Saturn in Aries, this invitation is forged in fire and sealed in time. We are not merely witnessing a planetary shift. We are being called into a sacred reckoning with ourselves. And at the heart of this cosmic moment lie several core themes, archetypal forces that, once understood, can transmute stagnation into sovereignty. First, we must understand the soul tension between two primordial forces, inertia and ignition. Inertia in this context is not laziness or failure. It is a gravitational echo of outdated patterns, habits that were once protective but have now become prisons. It is the story of selfhood that was stitched together from fear and approval rather than essence and alignment. Ignition, on the other hand, is the moment the soul breaks through the crust of conditioning and remembers its original fire. Saturn in Aries is the sacred friction between these two, a breaking open of the false foundation and a remembering of the original spark beneath. But this ignition doesn't come without tests. Saturn, the great examiner, does not allow us to leap blindly. It demands a full inventory of the soul's readiness. It asks, have you truly let go of the masks? Or are you simply trading one costume for another? Are you moving forward from truth, or merely trying to outrun your discomfort? These are not casual questions. They are cosmic litmus tests. And under this transit, avoidance becomes visible. Excuses begin to echo. Half-hearted paths begin to crumble. The time of rehearsal ends. Another theme emerges, the birth of sacred identity. Aries governs the raw, instinctual I am, a childlike assertion of existence. But when Saturn enters this space, that primal cry evolves. It becomes less about shouting, I exist, and more about asking, what kind of existence honors my soul? You may find yourself asking where you have been performing an identity rather than embodying one. This is Saturn's gift, a ruthless honesty that collapses illusions so that truth can rise from the rubble. In this way, identity becomes not a projection, but a pilgrimage. You are no longer trying to be someone. You are remembering who you've always been beneath the noise. Saturn doesn't rush this process, it dignifies it. It turns selfhood into a sacrament. You'll be asked to define your values, your mission, your sacred no, your non-negotiable yes. And most importantly, you'll be challenged to anchor these truths in action. This is the convergence point between soul and bone, where inner knowing becomes outer structure. This leads us to another profound current, the redefinition of power. Aries wants to charge. Saturn demands strategy. Aries wants freedom. Saturn imposes limits. Together, they forge a paradoxical strength, the kind of power that emerges not from dominance, but from self-mastery. You may find yourself being tested in leadership not in how loudly you speak, but in how deeply you embody your truth. This isn't the power of conquest. It is the power of coherence, where every action you take echoes from the same place within. In the spiritual dimension, this transit is an alchemical fire. Saturn is Kronos, keeper of time and karmic cycles. Aries is Aries, god of war and raw will. When time and will collide, timelines can be rewritten. Karmic loops can be broken. Lifetimes of hesitation can melt in the presence of aligned, courageous action. If you've felt as though you've been circling the same lessons again and again, Saturn in Aries cracks the loop. but not without requiring the ultimate toll: your full participation. Half measures are no longer accepted. The universe now demands your whole presence. Here, we also encounter the myth of linear progress. One of Saturn's deeper lessons is that time is not a straight line, but a spiral staircase. You may revisit old themes, not because you are failing, but because you are being given a chance to meet them from a higher place. Aries wants everything new. Saturn reminds us that evolution often looks like repetition, but this time with awareness. The pattern is the same. You are different. And that difference is the seed of transformation. Saturn in Aries also invokes the theme of sacred responsibility. Aries is the sign of the self. But Saturn says, yourself is not just yours. It is a vessel through which a higher order expresses itself. Under this influence, you are not just becoming who you are for your own sake. You are becoming who you are so you can serve your place in the larger design. Authenticity is no longer just personal, it is planetary. Your courage to live your truth is not just your liberation, it is part of the collective rebalancing of the world. Finally, this transit invites a return to inner authority. Aries often seeks validation through action, conquest, visibility. But Saturn pulls the gaze inward. The real revolution now is not proving your worth. It's standing so firmly in it that the world begins to shape around your presence. When Saturn moves through Aries, the external throne dissolves and the internal one is revealed. You stop asking for permission. You start listening to the quiet decree of your deeper knowing. It is from this place that momentum returns, not chaotic, not desperate, but clear, grounded, and undeniable. So if you've felt stuck, you're not broken. You've simply been waiting for the alignment of the cosmos with the architecture of your soul. Saturn in Aries does not offer easy answers, but it offers something far better: the tools, the fire, and the divine permission to finally build your life from your innermost truth. Imagine a forest, dense and ancient, where every path is cloaked in mist. In the center of that forest, there stands a warrior, not in armor, but in silence. Their blade is still sheathed, their breath slow and deliberate. This is not a warrior of battle, but of becoming. They are waiting, not because they are weak, but because they know the importance of timing. Above them, the sky turns, a slow, steady rhythm. And then, without warning, the trees part. A single shaft of light pierces through the clouds. The path appears, not new, but suddenly illuminated. The warrior steps forward. This is Saturn in Aries. To understand this moment, we must enter the symbolic. We must look beyond linear astrology and see the mythic current running beneath it. Saturn is not just a planet. It is the archetype of the elder, the gatekeeper, the law carver. It is Kronos, who devoured his children to prevent being overthrown, until Zeus broke the cycle. Aries is not just the first sign. It is Prometheus stealing fire from the gods, the divine spark of rebellion that births humanity's potential. When these forces meet, something ancient awakens in the soul, the yearning not just to break free, but to build anew. Let us tell a story that exists in all of us. There was once a child born in a land where nothing ever changed. The sun rose at the same angle. The seasons never turned. Even the birds sang the same notes, day after day. This child, though loved, felt suffocated. Their heart burned with unnamed longing. Every day, they walked to the edge of the village, staring at the great wall of trees beyond. No one ventured past it. "It's dangerous," they were told. "There's nothing out there for you." But the child knew better. They knew something waited in that wild unknown. And so, one day, without a word, they stepped into the forest. This is Aries, crossing thresholds that others dare not approach. But as the child wandered deeper, the forest thickened, paths disappeared. The initial thrill gave way to confusion. Days passed. Their courage began to waver. They questioned themselves. Maybe the elders were right. Maybe this was foolish. And then came Saturn, not in the form of punishment, but as a stone tower hidden deep in the woods. Inside lived an old keeper, stern, yes, but kind in a way that didn't coddle. He offered no shortcuts, no maps, only questions. Why are you here? What are you willing to let go to become who you are? The child stayed in the tower. Weeks, months. They chopped wood. They sat in silence. They faced their fears not through escape, but through inquiry. They learned discipline, not as restriction, but as devotion. One day they woke to find the tower gone. In its place stood a mirror, reflecting not their face, but a figure crowned in flame and grounded in grace. The child had become the path, and from that moment forward, they no longer needed direction. They were direction. Their movement was no longer frantic. It was fate. This is Saturn in Aries, the warrior who earns their stride, the spark who learns stewardship. It is the fire made wise and the wisdom made wild. Another symbol emerges from ancient times, the blacksmith. In myth, the blacksmith is often hidden from the world, working in the shadows, sweating near the forge. This figure, like Saturn, is not glamorous, but they are essential, for they take raw metal, untamed, molten, dangerous, and shape it into something purposeful. A sword, a key, a wheel. Aries, without Saturn, is raw metal, passionate but directionless. Saturn, without Aries, is a forge without fire, potential without the will to transform it. But together they create tools of destiny. You are the blacksmith now, or perhaps you are the metal, about to meet the hammer and flame. Both are sacred roles, and in some seasons of life, you are both at once, being shaped by pressure and choosing how to shape your reality. The forge is not punishment. It is the place where soul becomes structure. Saturn does not burn to destroy, it burns to refine. In yet another symbolic thread, consider the phoenix. Not the cliché of death and rebirth, but the deeper mystery beneath it. The phoenix does not die because it fails. It dies because it has fulfilled a cycle. The fire is not its enemy, it is its passage. Saturn in Aries is this fire, not the fire of destruction, but of divine reconfiguration. If you have felt like everything around you is crumbling, if relationships have ended, paths have dissolved, dreams have decayed, it may not be because you were wrong. It may be because you were right, but small. And now, something bigger is trying to emerge. But before the phoenix rises, it must burn in stillness. No wing beats, no cries, just flame, just surrender. Just the deep cosmic knowing that this is not the end, but the necessary disintegration before reintegration. Aries screams, "Go!" Saturn whispers, "Wait." And between the scream and the whisper, you hear the voice of your true self, perhaps for the first time. So when you feel stuck, consider this. What if you are not stuck, but paused at the altar of transformation? What if your stillness is sacred gestation? What if the delay is not a denial, but an incubation, until your soul is forged enough to carry the fire without it burning you? This is no small moment. It is myth unfolding through your bones. The stars are not distant. They are embedded in your DNA. And now, Saturn and Aries dance not just above you, but within you. The elder and the warrior, the mapmaker and the flame. And you? You are the story. You are the sword in the stone, the spark in the dark, the breath before the battle. You are the one the stars have been waiting to remember. Symbolism awakens the soul, but it is integration that anchors the transformation. Myth becomes power only when it roots itself into your everyday moments. When the glint of cosmic realization becomes a choice you make before breakfast, a boundary you honor in your relationships, a fire you choose not to waste on things that diminish your essence. And now that we have wandered the forest of symbols and sat with the archetypes, it's time to return, feet muddy, eyes opened, and walk into the very world we hoped to leave behind. Only now, we walk differently. With Saturn in Aries, this is where the revolution gets real. The shift begins, not with dramatic external changes, but with a subtle rewiring of your decision-making. Saturn demands structure. Aries desires instinct. Together, they ask you to turn your impulses into blueprints. That doesn't mean suppressing your fire, it means learning to aim it. Every urge to leap forward, to say yes, to tear something down. Saturn now becomes your internal checkpoint. Before you charge, pause. Ask yourself, is this coming from alignment or agitation? Saturn doesn't say no to fire. It just wants you to know why you're lighting it. In the realm of action, this can manifest as sudden clarity and long-standing confusion. Things you tolerated out of habit, jobs, relationships, environments, will now begin to feel intolerable. Not because they've changed, but because you have. The internal threshold for compromise begins to collapse. You'll start to see where you've been outsourcing your authority, waiting for signs, for permission, for a nudge from the outside to do what your soul already knows is overdue. Saturn in Aries doesn't nudge, it initiates. It invites you to reclaim that lost authorship. This might look like finally launching the project that has lingered for years in the realm of almost ready. Not perfectly polished, not universally applauded, but real, raw, begun. Or it may be a quiet yet seismic boundary. Saying no where you've always said yes, even if your voice shakes. It may come in the form of returning to your body, reclaiming your health not as a burden, but as a right. Aries rules the body. Saturn rules time. Together they call you to honor your body as the temple through which divine time expresses itself. And yet, there is caution here. Not all movement is progress. This transit is not about sprinting blindly into action. It is about becoming a conscious architect of your forward motion. You might feel a sudden pressure to leap, to overhaul your entire life. But Saturn whispers, build the bones first. That new business? Start with the schedule. That dream move? Start by decluttering your space. That desire to break up or quit or relocate? Sit with it. 3 days, 3 weeks, whatever it takes. If it still burns true after the heat of impulse has cooled, it's real. That's the Saturn test, fire that endures. This energy also ripples through relationships. Aries wants sovereignty. Saturn wants accountability. And so you'll begin to confront every dynamic where your independence has been surrendered in exchange for peace, validation, or avoidance. Relationships that don't support your evolving identity will begin to fray. Not necessarily with chaos, but with clarity. And those who can walk with you through your rebirth, who don't flinch when you stop performing and start becoming, will remain, not out of obligation, but alignment. This is also a powerful time to reevaluate your relationship with discipline. We often associate Saturn with restriction, but its highest octave is devotion. And Aries, when channeled wisely, turns that devotion into action. So ask, what could your life look like if discipline were not punishment, but reverence? Imagine waking up early, not because you should, but because your soul wants space to breathe before the world begins. Imagine showing up to the gym, the journal, the blank page, not as self-correction, but as sacred ritual. Saturn in Aries wants you to build rituals that embody who you are becoming. There's also a deep vocational implication here. Aries asks, what is your mission? Saturn asks, can you carry it? You may find yourself pulled toward a more authentic career path, or drawn to shape your current work with more integrity. This is not about abandoning all structure. It is about creating structures that mirror your spirit. You might find yourself craving autonomy, but now, Saturn wants you to back that craving with strategy. If you want freedom, what systems will support it? What habits, what schedules, What scaffolding can you build to hold your fire long enough to create something real? And all of this, every action, every pause, every breath, is happening within time, but serving eternity. Saturn is the keeper of cycles. Aries is the breaker of old ones. So what you initiate now is not a temporary shift. It is legacy work. It is karmic engineering. It is the planting of seeds that will echo through years, if not lifetimes. This is why your actions now matter, not just emotionally or professionally, but cosmically. You are not just choosing a new habit. You are shaping your destiny's spine. Let us be honest. This transit is not easy. It strips illusion. It tests readiness. It interrupts comfort. But it also liberates. And not with a crash, but with a clean, sacred cut through everything that is false. You may cry, you may rage, you may sit in rooms that feel emptier than before. But then something astonishing happens. You begin to breathe deeper. You begin to move differently. And you realize the stuckness was never outside you. It was the soul refusing to shrink itself into a life too small to hold it. Now you are building a new container, one worthy of the fire inside you. There are moments in life when you can feel the veil part, not dramatically, not with lightning, but with a subtle certainty, like a door you hadn't noticed slowly creaking open behind you. A sense that something has changed, not because the world looks different, but because you do. The ground beneath your feet still bears the same dust. The sky hangs overhead in familiar blue, but you are no longer the one waiting to be chosen, waiting to be ready, waiting for the right time. You have become the flame, the call, the shift itself. This is the quiet miracle of Saturn in Aries. It does not arrive with fanfare. It arrives like a whisper across the bones, a reminder from within. You were never stuck. You were simply incubating your becoming. To conclude this journey is not to end it. It is to draw all the threads together, to see the architecture behind the ache, the design behind the delay. If you have felt stagnant, motionless, suspended between two lives, what you were and what you could be, then this cosmic movement is not just astrology. It is your soul's alignment with its sacred trajectory. Saturn has always been the teacher you didn't ask for, but desperately needed. Aries, the fire you feared would burn you, but now you realize it was sent to awaken you. Think back to the stories etched in your past, the dreams you aborted because they came too soon, the relationships you shrank yourself to maintain, the words you swallowed because you feared their consequence. All of it, every step and misstep, every stutter and silence, has been the forge. And now, the blueprint shifts. You are no longer meant to merely survive your story. You are here to author it. What makes this moment powerful is not just planetary alignment, but the inner readiness that alignment unlocks. Saturn doesn't grant wishes. It creates thresholds. It doesn't deliver blessings. It demands the version of you that can carry the blessing. That's what the waiting has been about. That's why it felt like nothing moved. Because if the future had come any earlier, it would have crushed the fragile roots you were only beginning to grow. But now, the roots are deep enough. The flame has focus. The time is not just near, it is now. This is the sacred convergence between preparation and possibility, between vision and embodiment. Saturn teaches that manifestation is not magic, it's maturity. And Aries proves that maturity doesn't dull your edge, it gives it aim. What you dreamt of in youth, you now approach with adult sovereignty. That is power. That is liberation. So what does this all mean, practically and spiritually? It means you stop hesitating, not with recklessness, but with reverence. It means you take the leap, not because you know exactly where you'll land, but because your soul has outgrown the ledge. It means your yes becomes a spell, and your no becomes sacred armor. It means you begin living as though your life matters, not in theory, but in every decision, every conversation, every moment you choose alignment over appeasement. And above all, It means the end of delay as a lifestyle. You will no longer defer your becoming. You will not wait to be validated, permitted, or perfectly certain. Saturn in Aries says, "You are enough when you show up fully." And you show up fully by choosing truth over convenience, clarity over comfort, courage over control. Now is the time to confront the mirror and see not just who you are, but who you're becoming, to look into your own eyes and whisper the words that turn intention into incarnation. I'm ready. Ready to start again, not from scratch, but from wisdom. Ready to fail, not as proof of unworthiness, but as fuel for refinement. Ready to lead, not from ego, but from essence. Ready to walk the fire, because you finally remember, you are fire. And so, the wheel turns. The cosmos calls not from above, but from within. The myths were never out there. They were your story, veiled in stars. And now the time has come, not for more waiting, not for more analysis, but for initiation. If you feel stuck, know this. Saturn in Aries is not just a shift in the sky. It is the long-awaited crack in the wall around your potential. The breath before the breakthrough. The final test before the door opens. You have not been trapped. You have been tempered. And now, you do not just move. You emerge. Step forward, not as who you were, but as who you were always meant to be. The world is not waiting. It is ready. And now, so are you.